there's meant to be an engine in there. And that's only one of the things I've got going on right now. So we've got no engine. That's because the engine is in my front garden. And that's just the van. I've got about 3 other things going on at the moment. Let me show you around. So the back garden, I've got big plans throughout here and I've kind of started, and then I had to do the stuff on my van. I've got to take out this wall, take a bunch out of this wall. I've got to remove a load of terrain along here, put down a big concrete slab so I can build a shed. But why do you need a shed, Matt? Well, if you follow me, I'll show you. This room here is supposed to be a living room, but as you can see, it is very much a workshop. So yes, Matt, you need to get on and build that shed. Before we get into too much detail on each of those individual projects that are coming up on this channel, I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm Matt, this is the Atypical Workshop, and I do all sorts on this channel. I've currently got my house renovation going on. This is my van conversion, which is so nearly complete, and I will be able to go on a trip on it towards the end of summer once I've got my van fixed, the engine back in, and a couple of last tweaks inside. So if you're new here, please remember to subscribe below if you'd like to see more videos, or if you're feeling particularly generous, you can join my channel for a small monthly fee that would really help me to fund more of these videos. And if you're an existing subscriber, then please check out some of the other series if you think you'd be interested. Now, let's get into the detail of this video. We'll start with the engine. Why is it out? Well, let me tell you. The main problem with my van is the clutch, which has been leaking. Now, why was it leaking? Well, the rear crank seal had gone, meaning it was dripping engine oil onto the clutch. The other issue was the gearbox. The CSC, or clutch slave cylinder, had also failed, which meant that gearbox oil was getting into the bell housing and therefore leaking onto the clutch. So it was a bit of a double whammy. To get the clutch off, you have to get the flywheel off. Now, stupidly, I've left this out overnight and it rained, so this now needs a good clean. Not the only thing wrong with this engine though. I've been putting up with leaks on the front of the engine, on the back of the engine, and inside the engine with the clutch, as I just described. Now, on the side of the engine, oil cooler I'm replacing. The turbo return pipe that goes into there, that was leaking. The oil separator was leaking. The other thing I need to do whilst the engine is out is to find out whether I've got a wet belt or a chain and replace it if necessary. So the way to do that is by removing the tensioner bolt and seeing what shape it is on the end. Now, once that engine is back in, we can move on to the garden. That's the next project on the house. In order to work out what I wanted to do here, I firstly had to do a lot of surveying of the ground and put it into a blender model so that I could see what have I got now, what do I want to do, what have I got to change in order to do that. So let's pop upstairs to have a look at that now, and then before the video finishes we'll have a look at the van conversion, what's left to do on that, and what are my plans, where I want to go in it on my first trip. So this here is my Blender model. I've used a combination of the Blender API and Claude Code. So I give Claude Code all of my measurements, and then it builds a Python file that tells Blender what to do each time. So I've got a nice preservation of everything I've done so far. And what I've tried to do here is firstly, I've tried to be as accurate as possible. And secondly, I've tried to preserve all states of how the house is or has been since I bought it. So if you have a look up at the top left here, we've got 3 main scenes: as bought, as built, and planned. And what we're currently looking at is as bought. So this is pretty much what the house looked like before I touched it. We haven't knocked through into the utility room yet. This is the garden. It's pretty much as it is at the moment. So from here, this just looks like a rough representation of my garden, but I promise you now it's not. I went around the whole garden, I measured out where the paths were, and then I took the laser level out at dusk and I measured the heights. For example here, I measured the 4 corners of each tile, so that if I actually change the angle, let's hide that, you can see that this actually accurately represents the current terrain in my garden. And the reason I went to all this effort was because I wanted to know exactly where can I put my shed? What do I need to think about? If I put it in the garden at its current height at the back, then it's going to be too high. It's going to be kind of a bit obnoxious for neighbours if I build a shed at the back of my garden where it's already higher than the front of the garden. So what I decided was, let's use this slab where the oil tank sits and let's use that as the height for my shed. So if I hold down Control and click on Planned, you'll see a mega transformation as bought and planned. So this is what I want to do with the back garden. So I think I mentioned at the start of the video that I wanted to excavate a bunch of the terrain, a bunch of the earth out along here. And well, if I change to this elevation here, you can see that there's quite a lot to take out. You know, it's going to be like 400 millimeters worth of earth that needs to be removed. And let's go back into the planned view. And then I'll talk about why I want to do this. So as I mentioned, the living room is currently a workshop. The tools are in there. I can't turn the workshop into a living room until my tools are gone. They need somewhere to go, so therefore it must be a shed. So I'm going to excavate out. I'll need to build a new retaining wall along the boundary so that I'm not having my neighbour's garden collapse into mine, because that would be a real arsehole move for both of us actually. And once I've done that, I'm going to pour a large slab. But to start with, the priority is being able to do my living room. And therefore, I don't need a workshop to finish doing my living room. I just need to be able to get the tools out of there into a shed. So I'm going to build a modular shed. We're going to start off with just this small shed on the end. Get somewhere to put my tools, get them all out of the living room, decorate the living room. And then next summer, perhaps, I can, by building the shed in modules, if I hide this and all of this, they're just stud walls. You can build one, then you can take off this end wall and extend it and bring it to here, enlarging it to one workshop size shed, which will be really nice. Also, I've thought about how I want to do some of the terrain, because around here we're going to have a patio, because one of the plans for the house is bifold doors. Once the bifold doors are in, and that is some way off because they're going to be sort of £2,500. Anyway, so with this bifold, it's a small extension out into the garden, and then there's going to be a small patio. So I had to think hard about how I wanted to lay everything out, and this is what I've decided to do. So yeah, there is a rough overview of what I plan to be doing in the coming weeks and months and probably years on this house. So there are my plans. Let's jump into having a look at my van conversion, and then we'll wrap the video up. So I've got a couple of videos filmed and mostly edited but not released yet, and those are this pull-out kitchen, which I think I'll grab some footage from that video to show you better, because with the van jacked up and everything at the moment, it's quite difficult to show you. So there's the pull-out kitchen, and then on the back of the van there's also an awning which I've bought from Dometic, and that clips onto the back and comes out here to cover the kitchen. Once I've got those videos edited and uploaded, I think I'm going to put together a compilation time-lapse video, a bit like that very successful one on my renovation series, because this van conversion, let's be honest, it's properly dragged on. It's probably been 4 or 5 years now since I started converting the van. So I'm going to put together all of the best bits into one nice video, and then once that's done, we'll do a van tour video, and then we'll go and use it on a trip. And I think I'm going to go to Norway. It's not going to be a winter trip. My van isn't set up for that. I have no diesel heater. You know, it's a front wheel drive. You don't want to be going to the Arctic in something that isn't going to be able to drive out there. So it's going to be end of summer. Go to Norway, maybe go around some of the fjords, see my friends out there, and yeah, we'll see how a series like that goes. Yeah, there is so much to do on this channel. Just juggling everything and working out how to do everything when I do it, when am I going to be able to afford to do those projects? So if you're a van conversion viewer, hold tight. If you're a renovation viewer, hold tight. Thank you very much for watching all the way through. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.